Kyogre has historically been one of the best Pokemon in restricted formats, just like Regulation G, and today we are going to continue our Regulation G guide series with the lovable blue whale, but unfortunately Kyogre is not what it once was, right? There is a lot of hate towards Kyogre in this format, but nothing that having proper support beside your Kyogre cannot stop. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about here, and the first one is going to be Koraidon, and having a Sunsetter that not only removes your rain, but also now resists your water-based moves. Before, if you wanted to switch in your Sunsetter, it was going to be weak to the Water Spout and presumably still take 50% like that Groudon would on switching from the Kyogre. Now you have Koraidon, and Koraidon being a dragon type resists that Water Spout, so there's a lot more reliable of a way to beat Kyogre just in choosing the correct Sunsetter in that case. Now granted, Groudon is still going to be strong, but that is the Koraidon being around is one thing that Kyogre is not going to appreciate. You also have the likes of Raging Bolt and Miraidon, two electric dragon types that not only resist Kyogre, but can also do massive damage in return. If you are going to be the Miraidon, let's take Miraidon for example, and that's just going to be faster than you, and it's going to have the Electro Drift, which does more damage to super effective attacks, and it's going to hurt your Kyogre, probably before your Kyogre can move. Raging Bolt, on the other hand, in a similar way, will be clicking Thunderclap into you. Once again, that priority is just going to chip you down to prevent you from clicking that Water Spout, which is genuinely what you want to be clicking, right? And that is Kyogre. Okay, I don't know why that didn't work, but Water Spout goes burr, right? For lack of a better term, this is what the talk of the town is with Kyogre. You are sending big water damage in rain. That is what you do with this Pokemon, right? You've got Water Spout, you've got you've got Origin Pulse, which is a very good spread damage if you do get low on attack. You just have to be a little bit more, low on health. You just got to be a little bit more wary of the 85% accuracy, just like Precipice Blades. And then you also have the access to coverage moves like Ice Beam, like Thunderbolt, like Thunder, right? And you can take full advantage of your rain. That way you get access to Calm Mind. Now, unfortunately, we did lose access to Scald on Kyogre, which I think was something that was very strong for it, because you could have that single target water move that could potentially burn those physical attackers that genuinely hurt you. And it was also 100% accurate when you weren't clicking Water Spout, right? Or when you didn't have to click Origin Pulse, I should say, right? And it was a nice little thing that Kyogre got, so not having Scald kind of hurts, but that's not really too big of an issue. You also now get the ability to Terrestrialize, which I think actually benefits Kyogre a ton. You can do what a couple of these sets are going to be recommending, and that is Terra Water, and you're just going to try and choose to send damage. Or you can play it a little bit more defensively, right? You're weak to Grass, you're weak to Electric. What resists both of those? Grass, right? I think Grass is a very good defensive typing on Kyogre. All of a sudden you resist what would normally hurt you, right? You can also potentially go Dragon. There is a tons of options for Kyogre. You can go Steel as well, just because you might as well be weak to Fire because you have the Rain to make you neutral to Fire anyways. So therefore you're getting out of another weakness, right? So Grass, I think, flips the type chart really, really nicely. Let's get into some sets. And once again, guys, as we get into sets, these are benchmarks. A lot of these can potentially be used interchangeably, but I kind of wanted to lay out my thoughts in 3 separate, concise points for you guys to take a look at differently, right? So we're going to start with this Choice Scarf Kyogre. And this Choice Scarf Kyogre is going to be doing exactly what Kyogre likes to do. And that's going to be Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, and Thunder. And this is basically saying I'm going to walk in, I'm going to position myself to a spot where Scarf Water Spout is going to do stupid amounts of damage. Rillaboom takes about 50% from a Terra Water Spout, even with an Assault Vest on it. You are doing massive damage with this Terra Water Spout, and it is just going to be putting on immense amount of pressure. You also have other coverage moves if you need it, but 90% of the time, you're clicking Water Spout, and Water Spout's going to go burr with this set. That is the whole concept here. So because of that, in terms when it comes down to the spreads and the Terra types, you're going to send Terra Water, right? The whole point of this one is to do massive damage fast. So you're going to send Terra Water on the Scarf set, and you're probably going to go ahead and say, I'm going to preface this, you can just go 252, 252, 4. There is no real reason to run any of this. But I do like having the ability to live Grassy Glide. This lives, I believe it's the Grassy Glide from 116 Adamant Assault Vest Rillaboom. It might be the Miracle Seed one. I'll leave the calc on the screen for you guys, but it lives a pretty decent benchmark from a couple of the Rillabooms that felt really, really strong. Now, you don't need to do this. Like I said, Rillaboom, it shouldn't be too big of a concern for your Scarf Ogre, because if you're going to run a Choice Scarf Kyogre, you are probably pairing it with either an Indeedee that's going to prevent the priority moves from going into you, either a Giraffe that's going to prevent the moves from going into you, or potentially like a Serena that tends to get a boost in these restricted formats. Just something that's going to prevent those priority attacks from hitting into your Kyogre. So living a Grassy Glide is probably not super important, but I wanted to showcase the spread anyways, because I feel like it's something, and it's very, very nice to know that you have the luxury of, okay, so maybe my Giraffe has fallen, right? And now I can still live the Grassy Glide if I need to get to that scenario, right? It's just a nice little comfort thing to have on a spread like this, because you do enough damage at 220. Choice Scarf Kyogre is probably not common enough that you're going to need to win a speed tie. So sitting at 138 with a Scarf will put you at around 207. And that 207 is going to outpace the Iron Bundles, and Iron Bundles in this format are no longer running Booster Energy. They are running either Sash, Covert Cloak, or the like, and they're using the Electric Terrain to get their speed boost. Now, if you can find a way to have a Scarf Kyogre on the field and potentially change the terrain so they no longer have that speed boost on bundle, you are outspeeding that. You do not need to be faster than 220 unless you're trying to play the Kyogre speed ties or outpace other Scarf users in the format. Right? I don't think you need that, and being able to put that in bulk, like I said, just gives you that nice little luxury of saying, okay, if it ends up coming down to it in the end game, I can live a Grassy Glide. That is something that I can play towards, and it's a line that I know, so maybe I can afford to give up my Giraffe when I don't have to, or afford to give up my Serena, or something that my priority blocker, right? Something like that I can afford to give up on with this kind of spread. It just gives me that comfort. I don't think you're really missing out on damage, and as I mentioned, the speed doesn't really matter, but you can definitely just go 252 here. Your whole concept with this Kyogre is to basically just go hard, hit fast, click Water Spout, and not really have a thought in the world outside of clicking Water Spout, because it just does ridiculous damage, and there's still tons of matchups where this is going to be very relevant in this format. I think it's still really, really strong. Now, set 2 is kind of a more in-between approach. Right, 6188. This one I believe is living -1 Wood Hammer from 116 attack. Rillaboom. A lot of these calcs that I have here are based off the Rillaboom Wood Hammer, since Rillaboom is one of the most prominent Pokemon in the format right now. It just seems to be kind of not on every team, but on a lot of them. So you might as well have your calcs for that. And once again, guys, you can play around with these sets. I always say that when I build these guides, I kind of tend to hit 1 or 2 benchmarks, but there is tons of stuff to play around with on these spreads and interchange them. Take what you like, drop what you don't like, right? But I want to give you guys starting points if you do just kind of want to rip a spread off, and this is definitely one of the ones that I think works, right? So once again, this is one of those Mystic Water ones. This is one you're going to see on those Tailwind teams, right? This is one you're going to see on a Tailwind, maybe even see it on some sort of like a Tailwind plus a Trick Room team, or Tail Room as the kids are like to calling it these days. But either way, you're still leveraging your water moves on this team, right? You've got the Mystic Water, your Water Spout, your Origin Pulse. Those are your buttons. Those are the buttons you're clicking. You get the ability to protect this time, and you get Ice Beam. And once again, you're still going to go Terra Water. You don't have to go Terra Water. Once again, you can go with a defensive Terra on this one. I think the only one that really needs Terra Water is that Scarf set, because you might as well abuse it. But on this set, you could also go with a defensive Terra, like a Grass, perhaps, instead of just committing to the water damage. But I think if you're going to leverage this variant of the Kyogre, I think you really do want to run Water Spout, Terra Water, and just put on damage as fast as you can still. I still think this Mystic Water spread still wants to put out damage, but once again, you can potentially go with a more defensive Terra. Other than that, because you want to run Protect on the Mystic Water variants, you have to pick between Ice Beam and Thunder. I personally like Ice Beam. I think it puts on a lot more pressure. You do not love the Mirror match because you really can't hit opposing Kyogre, but once again, you have 5 other slots to patch that, and I think you're still leveraging your Water Spouts and your Origin Pulses into 90% of the meta anyways, so I still think you just have Ice Beam here. It covers those grass types, maybe catch them on a switch in or something like that. A low health Rillaboom you can kind of finish off before it gets to attack you, or especially if you're still beside the likes of a Farigiraf or something like that, which I still think is a very strong partner for Kyogre. And once again, guys, the spread is nothing crazy. Like I said, it lives that Wood Hammer at -1 from the Rillaboom. And then I just kind of hit the bump here and said speed stat. Speed stat is 100% up in the air. You really don't need that much more than like 112, 113, especially if you are going tailwind, because all you're going to need to do is get tailwind up and outpace things, right? So you don't necessarily need to go that fast, but having it be faster than like a Scarf Urshifu, let's just say, could definitely be something if you're going to consider running tailwind on Kyogre. That could be something. But Scarf Urshifu, I think at 149, the Adamant Scarf Urshifu's only hit 223 anyways, so once again dropping to 112 will probably just do that anyways, but maybe want to outpace the jolly ones. There's lines for Kyogre to play around with this speed stat and maybe either throw more bulk, more special attack. There's room to play with this set, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like I said, I really just hit that -1 wood hammer calc because it felt really, really good, right? And what we're gonna do here, and we're going to now live Miracle Seed Wood Hammer at -1 from 196 Adamant Rillaboom. And this was the whole concept. This one I said, I'm going to go lefties. I'm going to go Calm Mind. And I'm just going to set up this piece and use Kyogre as my setup piece. Between leftovers and when I built this variant of the Kyogre, I actually had it beside a Rillaboom, which explains the 132 HP step because I'm getting the perfect lefties recovery. I'm getting the perfect grassy terrain recovery as well. So it just felt good there. And then I didn't really need special attack or speed for that matter. Like I said, that 112 is probably the minimum. You don't need to go more than that, especially if you do have tail. And if you're running it in like a tail room and a trick room mode, sitting somewhere around 112, 113 is probably what you're going to want to do with this piece, right? And then I just kind of threw the rest into bulk. I might as well be on the field living. Special attack, this is kind of what I just had left over because I didn't really want to dump it into special defense. It kind of felt useless. I might as well do more immediate damage because I'm not always getting a Calm Mind up. But this one I really wanted to commit to the defensive Terra. I really wanted to showcase the defensive Terra here because you now get a Calm Mind up. You now are immune to, resisting things that would normally break you. And all of a sudden you're kind of flipping that type chart and you're just sitting on the field for that much longer. Whereas before, right, it would be like, oh, I have a Kyogre. Okay, I'm just going to save, they're going to just save their Rillaboom for an endgame versus Kyogre. But all of a sudden, I flip to grass with lefties and their grassy terrain. I am flipping that type chart. I am all of a sudden beating the opposing Rillabooms that I'm going up against. What I do not like about the Calm Mind variant is you can't really afford to run Water Spout and a coverage move. You can run Mono Water in Water Spout Origin Pulse Calm Mind. You can also just run Water Spout Ice Beam, but that feels very, very fake. Because if you get chipped while trying to set up a Calm Mind, then the best you can do is maybe 50% Water Spouts for the next few turns while you're trying to recover that health, right? So I think Origin Pulse is kind of a necessary evil on this one, where you still need that big water damage, even if you do get hit down to low health early, right? And then once again, Protect is a must here. You're just getting that lefties turn, getting that extra turn of lefties recovery back. The spread feels pretty strong. Once again, I'm just trying to sit on the field. And this is what you're doing with Kyogre. There's two kind of clear mindsets in my eyes when I'm playing Kyogre in Regulation G. And like I said, that's either the set 1 kind of mixed with a set 2 where you're just going to go, I am sending my water damage and you're going to be able to do nothing to stop me from sending 75% minimum to every single thing on your other side of the field. Right? That is kind of the one thought process, which is like heavy, lean into the big water coverage, lean into the aggressive offense. Or the other mindset is you play it a little slower. You play it a little slower. You have that defensive Terra. You flip the type chart. Now, granted, you can probably say this with 90% of Pokemon because that's kind of how terrestrialization works. You kind of pick if you want to go crazy offense or crazy defense. But with Kyogre, I think you can really lean into both ways, right? Like sometimes there's a Pokemon, it's just so frail you can't really lean into the defense even if you wanted to run a defensive Terra. But on Kyogre, you have stats. On a lot of these restricted Pokemon, you have the stats to kind of lean into big offense or lean into big defense. And I think with Kyogre, it really benefits from getting that defensive Terra because, like I said, there's a lot of hate to the immediate water spam. There's the Rillabooms, the Koraidons, right? So I think being on the slower end of things, playing it bulkier, setting it, slowing the game down and flipping the type chart helps Kyogre enable the water damage more so than just sending water damage. Now, of course, like I said, that's two different lines of thought. Feel free to use whichever one you feel is better or whichever one you kind of click with more. I think they're both very, very valid approaches to playing Kyogre, and I'm very curious to see how this Pokemon adapts in the meta. Because like I said before, it was ha ha ha, Water Spout, go burr, but I think there's a lot more to it now, especially with terrestrialization. And that's just one of the main reasons I really wanted to talk about Kyogre. Obviously, I just did the Groudon team report, the Groudon guide the other day, so the Kyogre was the natural spot, but I really wanted to get a Kyogre report out there because there's a lot of hate for Kyogre. Everybody's like, oh, Kyogre kind of is fallen off, but it's still a really strong mon. I'm not quite sure if it's S tier anymore because of all the hate, but it is still a very valid option that's still going to see success at tours without necessarily needing to like force it into games, because it's going to be a good Pokemon. However you choose to approach it, whereas you, once again, with the speed and offense and just going to send water, or whether you choose to send it with a more defensive approach, kind of get Calm Mind set up, or just flip the type chart so you can get more water damage on the board for more turns than just like the 1 or 2 that you're going to be on the field for. I think it's a very solid approach. I think both are valid. With that, I'm going to stop rambling because I am starting to ramble about Kyogre right now. Either way, this little blue whale, or large blue whale, I guess in this case, is going to be incredible once again. It is not going to be the S tier as it once was, but it's probably going to be somewhere around a B tier or a low A tier. Still very, very serviceable, very serviceable as a Pokemon, as a restricted, even into their single restricted format. You are going to see this because it does serve that big water damage niche that doesn't really exist outside of the restricted mons. Like, okay, my other Drizzle setter is Pelipper. That doesn't sound like it to me, right? So it's that big special water attacker that does incredible amounts of damage when you need it to, and it's going to be good. But with that, if you guys do enjoy these types of guides and videos, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.